back to the boxing wrap. This weekend, we've got proper boxing back in my eyes, and as always, I'm delighted to be joined by Kenny. Kenny, what are your thoughts on the first fight card at Fight Camp this week?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, especially having watched the garbage that's been on BT for the last couple of weeks. And well, when I say watched, I've seen about half of it. First week, I managed to get the first two fights in before I got bored to death. And I only saw Joe Joyce's fight on the Saturday just past, which bored me to death. So I'm kind of glad I missed most of those, and I'm looking forward to seeing a much more professional outfit in the Matchroom card. Although, you know, it's not superstar fights, right? But I've been having a look at the behind the scenes stuff that's been going on this week, and they've been doing a proper job of this, right? At least they've gone. I admire the effort that's been put into it, right? You know, it's not just a studio that they've picked up. You know, the amount of work and probably the money they've spent just to get this going. Is going to be, a fair bit of dough. So
have on the behind the scenes things. Have you seen what Eddie Hearn done his little tour on the cart he done on IFL?
Yeah. Was that the one where he did on his mobile phone?
Yeah, I think so. And they've even gone to far as to install all sort of dressing rooms and shower facilities and all that kind of stuff. So as you say, money-wise, I would have thought he would be at some sort of significant loss for this fight camp that he's got coming up.
Yeah. I mean, it's doing something different. It's it's trying to be. It's just generally more exciting because the BT stuff, if you didn't know it was on, it would have passed you by, right? Whereas if Eddie Hearn is doing what he does best, and that's promoting, right? He makes sure he gets his. Because I watch, when I've got time, I watch everything on YouTube boxing, right? And I always get Frank Warren videos up, on my suggested things to watch.
Oh, yeah.
But in the read up to any of his shows, I have not had any Queensberry stuff pop up on my feed as suggested things. So I don't know, have BT been promoting? I mean, I would be understandable if they didn't, because the shows have been terrible. But I mean, have you seen anything? Have they been doing any promoting for their shows?
The only thing I see on for the Joe Joyce fight last weekend, that was advertised once when I was watching one of the football matches, and the way they were speaking about it, you would have thought he was going to fight a prime Muhammad Ali Saturday night.
Oh, really?
And then, how on the advert it was all about how dangerous his opponent is, and he can't put a foot wrong as he won't be fighting Joe Joyce. When in reality, his opponent was not even a little Muhammad Ali.
Well, if you don't mind just segueing off onto the BT thing for a moment, in the first round, you could have almost believed that the guy was fighting was Muhammad Ali, because Joe Joyce took some shots in that first round, right?
Yeah, I remember saying to you when it was on, and I know you mentioned it on the podcast prior, about how big overweight Joe Joyce was. And I understand he didn't have a trainer, but you would have thought he would have done a couple of runs at least to get in shape for the fight.
Yeah, especially, I mean, he looked, what I would say, more clunky than usual. And it almost looks, there's a weird thing about Joe Joyce. He punches, it's almost as like his arms are kind of like stuck in position. He kind of punches, and it looks like he's not actually hitting that hard. Have you noticed that? I've noticed that when he's hitting people, the thing about him, he does throw quite a lot of punches, right?
Yeah.
But the punches, they don't look like they're, obviously he stopped the guy in the second round, but it
Yeah.
just didn't look like they were really, the punches had that much behind them.
No, I definitely wouldn't say he's a one-punch knockout artist.
No, certainly not.
I think his stoppage was more of an acclimative thing on the weekend. But the way BT, Steve Banks in particular, was talking, him v Dubois is going to be the fight of the year, which I don't think it is particularly. Neither of them are entertaining. I don't know if you caught their little Zoom session after.
No, I didn't.
It was so awkward. They had Joyce in the studio with Bunce, and they brought Dubois on at the end via Skype.
Did they try and hype it up? Did they?
Yeah, but I think it done the opposite. To be fair,
I could imagine so. I mean, what did Dubois say? You look terrible.
No, it was just on his couch, and it was like, you've done a good job. You better get ready for me. And then Joe Joyce were going, yeah, I'm going to knock your spark out, but no. Dubois wasn't even looking into the camera. I think he was looking at his mate that he had there with him. It was just, you couldn't make it up.
Yeah, well, it's tough. See, it's always tough, right? Because I've said this before. Looking back at fighters when they have poor fights or they don't look that great, and you think, well, if he fights such and such, he's going to get his ass kicked. And now I'll take the Billy Joe Saunders and Callum Smith example, right? When Saunders fought in America, looked awful. I thought, well, he hasn't got a chance against Callum Smith now. Smith will just destroy him. And then Smith fights John Ryder and arguably loses the fight. And then you think, well, I don't know who's going to win out of those two now. But it's to say, I watched Joe Joyce, and right now I don't rate Daniel Dubois that highly. It's not to say that he can't improve a hell of a lot. But I on the performance of watching Joe Joyce that night, I mean, I don't think Dubois would have any trouble at all in knocking Joyce out. But I say again, Dubois not fought for ages either, so it's going to be interesting to see what his fight is like. And
yeah, I think I tend to agree with that. I think Joe Joyce. I think his best days are behind him when he was in the amateurs, and I think he's 35 coming up now, albeit that's not old for him.
Yeah, I know he's getting. Yeah,
I don't particularly think he's going to go very far in the professional.
No. As I say, he's getting on in age, and I think. I mean, I watched the fight about not in real time when he fought Usyk, and when that was that was an amateur fight, but it must have been like a semi-pro.
Was it the
amateur
World Boxing Series?
Yes.
One that he had?
Yes, I think so, because it was. I think they were still amateurs, but they weren't wearing headgear and all the rest of the amateur stuff. And Joyce looked up because Joyce was a lot lighter that night. He was really in shape that night, and I think they were competing at what the competition may be regarded as heavyweight, right?
Yeah.
Which I think by professional standards is cruiserweight. I don't know if I've got that right, but Joyce was slim, and he was he had a hell of a lot less body fat than he has now. And although he still looked the same, he still had the same awkwardness about him. He was a lot quicker than he is now. Okay, although Usyk was a great fighter at cruiserweight, Usyk's now at heavyweight, and Usyk, okay, has only just joined heavyweight. But if you're going to get beaten, arguably in your prime when you're a lot younger than you are now by Usyk, at super heavyweight, I don't think he's got much of a chance at all. Because this is I regard the heavyweight division professionally as a super heavyweight division. Now it's not heavyweight. Heavyweight is anything over 200 pounds, but the guys you're coming up against are 240, 250, 260. That's when you look at, there's about half a stone in between the weight divisions, going right through from, you know, flyweight right up to cruiserweight. When you hit cruiserweight to heavyweight, the jump is massive, right, in weight.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so going back to the card on the weekend, there's 5 fights on there. I think it's going in this order. Dalton Smith v Nathan Bennett, Fabio Wardley versus Simon Lilly, Gill v Bellotti, Tennyson and Gwynn, and then Eggington and Cheeseman. So apart from the main event, what fight are you looking forward to on the undercard the most?
Well, I think, see, it's the Fabio Wardley fight. I'm intrigued to see him fight. Although I don't really know much about the other guy he's fighting, he's always one to keep an eye on because he's quite well publicized. He's, you know, he's managed by Dillian White. So I'm interested to see how he gets on. The Jordan Gill fight, I'm obviously interested to see how that kind of goes as well. You know, although it's not superstars, there's Eddie Hearn's made some quite big claims about this card. And as much as I criticize, you know, Frank Warren's shows for being terrible and one-sided and what the rest of you, Eddie Hearn, don't get me wrong, will get the same criticism from me if these turn out to be, because he's building this up as, you know, not necessarily 50-50 fights, but, you know, these have been matched well, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, you know, we'll see. I'm looking for far more competitive fights than I've seen on BT. Than, you know, especially with, you know, because Eddie Hearn is one thing he is good at is promoting. What you know, he can take what seems to be bad matchups and make them sound like they're good matchups, even though they end up being bad matchups, right?
Yes.
So
I would say probably on paper, they're all fairly competitive. I would say the two that maybe aren't necessarily a 50-50 fight will be the Dalton Smith against Bennett fight and the Wardley and Lilly. I would say Jordan Gill, Tennyson and Gwynn and Cheese and Eggington are all arguably 50-50 fights on paper at least.
yeah, well, I think the Eggington Cheeseman fight is one I'm really intrigued to see. Because I think if I remember, say one of the things that annoys me about my life is getting older, and I'd say I'm not old by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm certainly older than you are. And with the gap that we've had in boxing and things that have gone on, you kind of forget, you kind of forget a bit more about things that have happened.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think Ted Cheeseman lost. Now he lost. Did he? How's it? I hope I'm not going to get this wrong. He fought. Did he fight for the Europe? Did he fight for the European and lost against a Spanish guy?
Yes,
Am I right?
yeah, that's correct. And then he lost to Scott Fitzgerald, which was quite controversial at the time.
Yeah. Now, yeah, the Scott Fitzgerald fight was a good fight, and I think I remember the Spanish guy that he fought. I think it was someone Garcia. Is that correct?
Yeah, Sergio Garcia, I think.
Sergio Garcia. That was it. Yeah, because it's the same name as the golfer, right?
Yeah.
And what Ted Cheeseman showed there was worrying because the Sergio Garcia was a pretty good boxer there, and he kind of just outclassed. Ted Cheeseman was literally walking forward.
Yeah.
With his head, just using his head as a punch bag to get in close. And Sergio Garcia was obviously hitting and moving, but he was taking far too many punches in that fight.
Yeah, I don't know if you've caught the interviews on Matchroom with Eggington and Cheeseman, but for both young guys, which I think is something quite worrying, it gets banded about quite a bit, punch drunk in boxing. but they both certainly sound like they're got the beginning phases of that when they do their interviews and speak for young guys, especially.
Yeah, it's the aftermath of taking so many punches. So I'm, it's kind of worrying. But as I say, they're both game, right? So, and I, we'll maybe do some predictions a bit later, but interesting fight I'm seeing, and certainly, we're not talking about world beaters here, but it's certainly a fight that you could look at that and thinking, I'm looking forward to that as a spectacle much more than anything I've seen recently from other networks. And I have people that I know, guys that I work with that are kind of casual boxing fans, that are looking forward to this fight.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think they're both exciting guys, and they got styles. I wouldn't say necessarily both household names, but I think people who know a bit about boxing know who these two are.
Yeah. Well, I think their names help promote them as well, right? You've got, it's being promoted as egg versus cheese. So,
Yeah.
but they've got names that are, recognized, like instant, like rememberable. Somebody, Cheeseman, that's a fair surname. Eggington, that's a fair surname. So, and plus, they're obviously on Sky, promoted by Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn's doing the promoting for this, so it's.
Yeah.
It's a bit. But is there anything? I mean, Jordan Gill. Do we Reece Belotti? Do we? I think. Do we think you're going to pick Jordan Gill for that one, or?
Yeah, I think you have to side with him. I think he's the better boxer, but then Reece Belotti does have quite good power for the weight.
Yeah. So. Well, I said before previously that this is going to be like a boxer versus a puncher kind of thing, because but Belotti seems to either knock someone out or be knocked out himself.
Yeah.
And obviously Jordan Gill's got far less knockout wins than Belotti does. So in terms of their percentage of their fights versus there, but do you think Fabio Wardley is going to have much trouble with Simon Valili?
Well, the interesting thing about Valili is he's moving up from cruiserweight.
Yes.
So it's going to be interesting to see how he shapes up.
Was Fabio Wardley, because he's quite small for a heavyweight these days. I know he's tall, but he's not he's not a hugely big built guy. I thought did he ever compete at cruiserweight in the amateurs or anything?
I think when he first turned pro, I think maybe he fought his first or second fight at cruiserweight, then moved up. I want to say, I think I'm right in saying that.
Yeah, because he doesn't look to me to be like a natural. Well, I say natural heavyweight. He probably is a natural heavyweight, but not a natural super heavyweight as I would class the division is now.
Yeah, I think, say if there was ever a division in between cruiserweight and heavyweight, say if they capped it at 220 pounds per se, I think that would be the ideal division for someone like him.
Yeah. I think when you start to get over 220, unless you're ridiculously tall, you start to, a guy that's 230, say, that's 6'1" or 6'2" is quite a beefy kind of guy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. James Tennyson v Gavin Gwynn. What's your thoughts on that fight for the British title lightweight?
Yeah, so I don't know a huge amount about either guy. I think Tennyson would be favorite in this fight. I think he's a lot more experienced than Gavin Gwynn is.
Yeah, the first I really heard or took notice of him was when he lost to Tevin Farmer and fought for the world title over in America.
Yes, yeah. So of course.
Since then he moved up to lightweight. and he's won all of his fights at lightweight by either stoppage or knockout. So I think you would have to favour him slightly, but his opponent, I think, is a much more unknown.
Yeah, I'd say Gavin Gwynn. I'd say I did. It was this kind of almost came out of the blue for me because I haven't seen. I may have seen some of his fights on other shows and undercards and just not remembered him, but it's not someone. And you would think I would have thought his name would have kind of stuck in my mind because it's Gwynn's quite a unusual surname, right?
Yeah,
So that kind of thing sticks in my mind if I'd seen him, but I've not. Maybe I've not been paying as much attention as I should.
yeah. Just looking on him earlier the other day on Boxrec, even though he fought Joe Cordina, I still didn't really know who he was. So I
No,
think he
yeah.
could.
So I did know that he'd fought Joe Cordina and obviously lost against Joe Cordina.
Yeah,
But again, Cordina's still kind of, Cordina must have only had what, a dozen fights or something.
yeah. He's had 11. Yeah,
So these are very much guys making their way in the boxing world and kind of just coming up. So that's probably why we haven't seen or we don't know so much about them. Because it's hard to, when you're watching, obviously a lot of people fight on undercards and you're fighting on so if you're the first fight or the second fight on, say, like maybe say it's a Joshua card or something, although you're there and you get the exposure, once the main event fight happens, it kind of, the rest of the card kind of,
yeah,
especially with the heavyweights, there's always there's controversy and everything. A lot of it kind of just fades into the background, sort of thing. So I love seeing
yeah,
Gavin Gwynn. When I see the guy fight on Saturday, a lot, things will come back to me, and I say it's one of the points of getting older in life as you start to, yeah, it's really bad, and I haven't got dementia, but you kind of find yourself struggling to remember things.
yeah.
Especially
But
nothing that, if there's not huge controversy or something in
yeah,
the fight.
and I think in fairness to his sort of level of fighter, they're normally tucked away on the Facebook fight before the show or whatnot. So easy
Yeah.
to forget in that respect.
Well, again, this is another problem with me is one of the criticisms I have of Sky, if there's only very few, is that this is on Saturday night, right?
Yeah.
7 p.m. I believe it begins.
Yes, correct.
So
Yeah.
I am pretty sure the FA Cup final is going to be a 5:30 kickoff on Saturday.
Yeah, it is.
Now, my team is playing in the final of that FA Cup, right? So I am probably going to miss half an hour of the opening part of the fight camp, right?
Yeah.
So if there's a fight on in that first half an hour, I'll probably miss it, and that's that's although we're on a boxing podcast here, and I love boxing. You're literally talking about your football team playing in an FA Cup final, which doesn't happen every day, right?
No.
Although my team are in the FA Cup final more often than not. I can't give it up. I don't care who's fighting. Although I'll
Yeah.
probably put it off half time because we'll be 3-0 down. So
Yeah. One thing I would say about Sky in that respect, though, they do like a good old chat before the boxing starts. So I wouldn't be surprised if the
yeah,
fight
maybe
starts.
maybe it won't mean anything. Especially get some half decent pundits on there. Get and Anna Woolhouse will be on there, and she's not the worst presenter in the whole world. She's not the worst looking either, and hopefully, probably we don't have enough people listening to this to get me into trouble for saying that. But I do like a bit of the setup Sky have got, and the pre-match build-up. she's nice, and I think
Yeah,
she's a very good presenter as well. And if they have Johnny Nelson, Tony Bellew, the likes of that, that's a pretty good build up. I don't want to see Matthew Macklin on there, and I don't want to see Carl Froch in the build up. They can do the co-commentating if they like. That's fine. But we'll just
yeah. I think I saw something. I think it might have been from Adam Smith or someone, but I think it's only going to be Anna and one other. So I don't think you're going to get the usual 3 or 4 pundits like.
Oh, right, okay. So it'll probably be Anna and Johnny Nelson, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So hopefully, there's a good bit of bullshitting going on before, and hopefully I'll be celebrating as I turn the as I turn the boxing on Saturday.
Yeah, going back to Eggington and Cheeseman, I think Eggington's quite unique in that respect. I don't think many people that's got a 28 winners and 6 losses would necessarily get the exposure and credit he carries on getting.
Yeah, as I say, 6 losses, you're starting to get up, uh, you're starting to think, well, is this guy, are we looking at his career as if he loses against Cheeseman here?
Yeah, I think a loss is definitely more damaging for Eggington than it is Cheeseman.
Yeah. So who would you say is favourite going into that fight?
I was thinking about this earlier, and going off their both last fights, you would have to say Eggington because he won, but I think Cheeseman will win. Who do you have in it?
Okay, well, I would actually pick Eggington, so I would disagree with you there. But it's not a very big. I'm not confident, right? It's not it's you can make an argument either way for both, and that's obviously, I think that shows why this fight is intriguing, right? Because I think literally it could go either way. And I don't think I don't think you could have said that about any of the fights on either of Queensberry's cards that have happened the last couple weekends, right?
No. Even their ones coming up, I've seen a few of them, and it's just complete rubbish. Who they got fighting on there?
Well, I always try and look at with Sky. Every time I see a show, there always seems to be one upset on the card. Now, I don't know if it'll be the same because it's totally different things, but I think Eggington beating Cheeseman will be the upset on that night. And obviously, it's not an upset of epic proportions, but I'm going to go for Eggington, and I don't care if I'm wrong. I'm not. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm not going to cry because I picked a wrong pick, because it's boxing, it's fighting after all, and it's quite a tough thing to predict because things can happen in fights. Someone gets punched and the nose, breaks their nose, and you've got to fight for 9 rounds with a broken nose, right? It's anything can happen, right?
Yeah, I can't for the life of me see how it cannot be a good fight, Eggington and Cheeseman, whatever happens in terms of the result of the fight.
Yeah, I mean, barring like a tremendous one punch, somebody just lands a scorcher on someone's chin and it, which can happen in any fight. So, but I think, I think it's going to be a really good fight, and I think it can go either way.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the other undercard fights, who do you have? We said we think Jordan Gill will win. Are you edging with Tennyson against Gwynn?
Yeah, I'm going to go for Tennyson and to beat Gwynn in that fight.
Yeah, and I'm guessing you'll feel the same about Wardley against Lily.
Yeah, I'm gonna go for Wardley on that one. I'm gonna pick the favourites and all the other fights apart from the Eggington Cheeseman fight.
Yeah,
Although I don't know
I
much
agree.
about the two guys in the first fight, but yeah, we'll probably pick. It'll probably all be the other way, and I'll probably pick every fighter wrong by the time it comes. But it's not, as long as you don't claim to be, if you this is why bookies make money, right? Because
Yeah,
if
absolutely.
you could pick the winners of everything in fights, football matches, the rest of it, the bookies wouldn't be in business, right? So
No, yeah, absolutely.
so yeah, looking forward to it. Good to see some professionally done boxing. So for a long time, and interested to see how. I'm just interested to see the whole setting of it all, right? Being in effectively what is Eddie Hearn's back garden, everything purpose built, and just to see how the fights are. It's it might turn out to be total and utter crap, and we'll come on and discuss that if it is. But I don't see how it can be, because uh, there's a whole lot of work gone into it, and I don't think they will let it be terrible.
No,
The only way it could be terrible is if the fights are terrible.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, and I think that will conclude our preview of the show this week. I'm sure we'll be back next week and discussing if it's been terrible or if it's been a success.